Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have the Game Week 16 preview where I'll be discussing some of the key talking points and players ahead of Game Week 16. If you enjoyed today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, the first thing I want to discuss today is actually what looks like a pretty bad injury crisis for Arsenal at the moment. And the reason that I bring this up isn't to say that these players are definitely injured, but I know for a lot of you, you're maybe not particularly active on social media, especially throughout the week, and you might not have seen this news. And what I don't want is you moving early for a player that might potentially be injured, and this might now potentially change your plans. But really the reason that I want to bring this up is just to say, if you can, I would probably wait to make transfers for the Arsenal defence, because as of Tuesday, a lot of Arsenal accounts were reporting, as well as Sky Sports, because there was an open training session, that Gabriel, Calafiori, Timber, the new one, Partey, Zinchenko, Ben White, and Tomiyasu are all apparently were missing from training. Now, as to which of those are injured or having load management, or maybe they were coming out for the second half of the session, we've seen that before with Arsenal where players miss the first half and then they come out for the second half, I don't yet know. Especially Yuri and Timber, we didn't hear anything about an injury. This could genuinely just be a bit of load management. Like, not every player trains in every training session. So I'm not trying to scare you. I'm not saying sell these players. And I'm not necessarily saying that you can't go out there and buy them. But for me, it just makes a lot of sense to wait. I'm recording this on Wednesday morning. Arsenal playing the Champions League on Wednesday evening. So obviously, if any of these are in the squad, then fantastic. Then you know that they're okay. But if none of these are in the squad, then you know you might have a bit of an issue with them. And especially someone like a Yuri and Timber or Gabriel, they are fantastic buys at the moment if they are available, but we just don't know that yet. Lots of people are asking for this video, can you give us an update on Gabriel? What should we do with him? As of right now, it's the same thing. I probably wouldn't buy him, but I definitely wouldn't sell him because he could be available not only for the Champions League today, but also for the game this weekend. So basically, if you can wait for the Arsenal defence, do it. But I still love the idea of buying an Arsenal defender at the moment. Just very briefly, you might think, well, I'll just go out there and get Saliba. If all of these players genuinely are injured, they've got a real issue. They might have to play like Marino as an inverted fullback with like Kivior and Saliba. And then who do they even play? Like, it's maybe like Tierney at left back and then someone inverting from right back. I'm not saying Arsenal still can't keep clean sheets, but this wouldn't necessarily make me want to go out there and buy Saliba either. So yeah, let's wait and see on Arsenal. I'll leave it there. And fingers crossed, Gabriel in particular for me is going to be fit and available for Game Week 16. So another little bit of housekeeping before we move on to discussing some of those key players that you should be looking to buy and sell in your FPL teams. In the next section, we're going to look at Liverpool defence, Trent versus Van Dijk, etc. Just wanted to discuss what that Liverpool versus Everton postponement means for later on in the season. And it does mean that both Liverpool and Everton will have an extra double game week later in the season, where that game between the two of them is then rescheduled at a later point. Obviously for Everton, there's not much to discuss because it means that one of their games in the double is going to be against Liverpool. So it's basically a normal fixture plus an extra fixture against Liverpool. So if you have an Everton defender that week, or an Everton player, I should say, you play them. But I don't think you desperately go out and buy Everton players for a double that includes a game against Liverpool. Before I even get into discussing what this double might look like, big shout out to both Ben Krellin and James from Planet FPL. Without them, the double and blank season would be terrible. I can't thank them enough for their work. So all of the information that I carry here, it's not my own doing. It is courtesy of Ben and James. So massive shout out to the pair of them. But basically, from what they have both said, the earliest that the Liverpool versus Everton game could be is game week 19, but they both think this is highly unlikely, but it is possible. So we could see a double in 19 for Liverpool and Everton. That would be then for Salah and for Liverpool in general, West Ham away and Everton away, which is still pretty good, but they both think this is quite unlikely. What they are both positing is that the most likely week that this double will be is either game week 24 or game week 25, with then a small possibility that it's as late as game week 33. They both agree, and James in particular, that probably game week 33 is later than it will be, and that 24 or 25 is the most likely. So let's go on the basis that it is going to be in game week 24 or 25. That would mean that the double game week for Liverpool is Bournemouth away and Everton away in 24, which is arguably the worst one it could be in terms of difficulty of fixtures, and that's still not bad. And if it's in game week 25, it's Wolves at home and Everton away. Right? 33 would be even better. That's Leicester away and Everton away. What I'm trying to say here is Liverpool have an insane double coming up at some point, even if it's in 19. Like I said, it's West Ham away and Everton away. Now, why is this important? Firstly, if you're looking to buy Liverpool players at the moment, and as I said, we'll discuss Liverpool defence in a second, look at this upcoming run of fixtures. Fulham, Spurs, Leicester, West Ham, United, Forest, Brentford, Ipswich, then going into Bournemouth and Wolves back-to-back, in which the double is likely to be. It's an insane run of fixtures. So not only do you want Liverpool for that run anyway, as long as the Liverpool player that you buy is going to get good minutes, you're then going into a really nice double game week 2. So it just makes Liverpool assets even more enticing. The next reason is if you haven't yet used your triple captain, and well done if you haven't, by the way, that's fantastic, you've been patient with it, you definitely are keeping it now. Don't play it in a single game week. You're definitely probably keeping it for one of these, whatever the week is that Salah gets his double, right? Any of these three, especially game week 25, would be an unbelievable triple captain opportunity. Obviously, if you played it in game week 2, by the way, when Haaland played Ipswich, he got 17 points. You're probably laughing anyway. If, like me, you played it in game week 9, when Haaland got 6 points against Southampton at home, by the way, 2.3 XG in that game. I will never get over that. Then obviously you're very upset, because this is worst case scenario if you used your triple captain earlier in the season and it didn't go particularly well. But regardless, I'll leave it there. I think the important thing is Liverpool will have an extra double this season, as will Everton, by the way. It's probably going to be a very good one for them, and therefore I would both buy Liverpool assets and hold your triple captain as well. I don't want to jinx this, but I feel very concise today. I'm normally a little bit too waffly. I'm feeling very... This section is going to be like 15 minutes long now. Right, the next section is Liverpool Defenders. Lots of people this week looking to buy one of Trent or Van Dijk and wondering, is it worth saving at the moment what is 0.6 million going for Van Dijk over Trent? Or do you even go cheaper for the likes of Robertson? Do you look to own a Gomez? Or maybe even, and I've chucked this one in there, even though we don't have like much attacking data on him, Alisson, who is now back in net and played midweek in Europe. So, what is my opinion on this? I will start by saying I am a massive, massive Trent fanboy. I love owning the FPL. I love watching him play. And whenever I can get Trent into my team, I will absolutely do it. So, on Trent, his data this season is in line with, if not slightly better than what we've seen from him in previous seasons. So lots of people saying he's playing a more reserved role for slot. And I would say if you watch the games, let's ignore data for a second, he's certainly not that marauding fullback that gets forward and whips in crosses from the byline. Apart from when he came on against Newcastle, he was exactly that. But I will absolutely agree that if you watch the games, he doesn't feel as attacking, but the data doesn't support that. Now, a lot of his expected assists came in those opening 2 or 3 games when he was absolutely monstrous. But even since then, he is still getting forward quite a fair bit. He's still creating chances as well. And it is still the same Trent. And whilst his XG is relatively low, you know Trent on the edge of the box always has a good chance of scoring. He takes direct free kicks as well. So you need to look at everything with Trent, as well as obviously the data. And I just think that he's basically in line with what we've seen in previous seasons. But not only is he a bit cheaper, the gap between him and Van Dijk is also a lot smaller. Like in previous seasons, you'd be happy paying an extra like 1.5 million for Trent over Van Dijk. I wonder what has changed that would make you not want to pay an extra 0.6 million to go for Trent over Van Dijk. I suppose that's the thing for me. Like the gap between the two of them, it doesn't feel big enough for me to say that Van Dijk is worth it ahead of Trent. That's my early estimation anyway. That's my initial thoughts. On Van Dijk, there is so much going for this man, right? He starts every single game and plays 90 minutes in every single game. He's not bad for bonus points when they keep a clean sheet too. And we know that Van Dijk in the air is very, very good, right? He gets those towering headers. He's a massive man. From set pieces, he can score goals. And we saw against City, he had 3 chances in that game. One of them was a big chance. He hit the post. Van Dijk is monstrous in the air. However, and Liverpool fans were really upset when I tweeted this, I looked into the data. He's not accumulated more than 0.1 XG per 90 now for 4 seasons. Van Dijk's goal threat this season is 0.06 XG per 90. You can see that is only marginally ahead of Trent and Robertson. And that's XG, right? And he's got no creativity, 0.02 expected assist. So Van Dijk's goal threat isn't much beyond Trent, who, and in all honesty, Trent doesn't carry much, if any, goal threat, right? You're really relying on those assists. What that means, if you're looking at the data, is Van Dijk is likely to get you a goal every 16 games. We are heading into game week 16 now, and Van Dijk has 1 goal, so he's performing roughly in accordance with what you would expect. Now, I will say, because I can already see it coming, that Van Dijk gets like 3 goals in the next 3. With defenders, as long as they are in the box, and in Van Dijk's case, good in the air, he could absolutely score in like back-to-back-to-back games. We've seen with Saliba recently. And by the way, Saliba's not, I don't think, great in the air. And also, he's not particularly someone that they aim for from set pieces. One of the goals came off his bum. One of the goals dropped to him at his feet. Like, you can just get, not lucky goals per se, but as long as you're in the box from set pieces, you can absolutely return. So, I'm not saying Van Dijk's bad in the air. I'm not saying he can't score more goals. But what I am trying to say is there is this narrative around Van Dijk that he scores lots of bullet headers. He's monstrous in the air. And whilst I do think he is good in the air and he can score a bullet header, the goal threat really isn't there to make me say that you're going to get an equal amount of attacking returns from Van Dijk as you are Trent across the season. Now, you don't necessarily need that because the reason that you own Van Dijk is for the expected minutes. That is it. He's playing for the best defence in the league so far this season, and he will play every game. And why that is important is we are now going into this December period where there are lots of games. Trent has just come back from injury. Robertson hasn't always been first choice this season. We've got other players returning. Even the centre-back position alongside Van Dijk, it isn't fully secure. Van Dijk, along with Alisson, is the only player that will start every game when they are fit and available, and that is absolutely massive. And we've got this double game week coming in 24 or 25. Van Dijk will start both games in that double. Will Trent? I don't know. So, Van Dijk is a sensationally good pick at his price. I would argue top 3 defenders to own in FPL at the moment, along with probably Trent and Gabriel if you had all of the money in the world. But I just want to temper your expectations in terms of attacking threat that you're getting from him. That wouldn't be the reason that I would own Van Dijk. Hopefully I've made that very clear because I think he's a fantastic option and I am slightly tempted to bring him in this week. After sort of Trent and Van Dijk, Robertson's had some creativity and also he played really, really well midweek. He actually accumulated over 0.35 expected assist. He had a very good game and he's down at 5.9 million. My issue with Robertson is as soon as Tsimikas is back, I do think they will share minutes. Like I would very highly doubt if Tsimikas is fit that Robertson starts both in the double. And I would also highly doubt that he starts all midweek games as well, especially in December. So my issue with Robertson is like when Tsimikas isn't fit, which is right now, Tsimikas isn't available. I feel like Robertson's basically nailed on to start because I don't really see an alternative that they have. But once Tsimikas is back, that would worry me. So in terms of a long-term pick, I don't think you get that from Robertson unless there is issues with Tsimikas returning. But I think that in the meantime, it will do very well. You can see here, Fantasy Football Hub have him top for projected points based on the fact that Tsimikas isn't available right now. In terms of Konate and Gomez, we don't actually have a time frame Konate's return. I think the initial estimate was about 4 to 5 weeks, and that would have him returning in a couple of weeks. So it could be as early as sort of game week 17, maybe 18, that Konate's back, in which case Gomez is probably likely to drop out of the 11. That being said, Gomez has been very good since he's come in. I wonder if once Konate's back, because Gomez has been really good, I wonder if they will share minutes now. It might be that neither Konate nor Gomez are options because they can rotate. The only thing that I would say against that is Slot has shown, with both Konate at first and now Gomez, when players come in that centre-back role, he tends to just favour them. Like he's not been rotating Konate and Quansah. He's just slapped Konate in, and then Konate's pretty much started every game. Gomez comes in, starts in the Prem and starts midweek. So I do wonder if there could be an element here of just he chooses between Konate and Gomez, and they're the one that starts. And in all honesty, I think Liverpool fans would agree, Konate is more likely to be the first choice centre-back. But again, going into this busy period, you can't buy Konate now anyway. And I certainly wouldn't be buying Joe Gomez myself when Konate could be returning in the next sort of 2 weeks or so. Let's wait on an update. Slot is generally quite an honest manager. So I think if he has an update on Konate, Tsimikas, and also Bradley, by the way, coming back and maybe taking minutes off Trent, once we get an update around those players, I think it will become a lot easier to select a Liverpool defender. But I'll tell you who we don't need an update for. Virgil van Dijk, because it doesn't matter who's fit and available, as long as he starts. And it will keep coming back to this of, if you just don't want the headache, just go for Big Virg, right? He might not be getting you 10 goals a season, he'll probably get you 3, maybe 4, but he will start every available game. So yeah, that is also the benefit there. I'll just give a quick shout out to Alisson. Started midweek in the Champions League against Girona, made 5 saves. On the sofa score, he was listed as the man of the match. An exceptionally good, I mean, how good is Alisson? And that's no disrespect to Kelleher, who, by the way, has been very good since he came in. But Alisson is different gravy. Makes the entire Liverpool defence even better. He's really good for saves as well. In terms of those premium keepers, he makes a lot more saves than Raya, makes a lot more saves than Ederson. So I really like Alisson as an option. I just wonder, like, is he worth 1 million less than Van Dijk? I mean, considering I said that Van Dijk probably doesn't carry as much attacking threat as he used to, maybe. Like, if you've got a free goalkeeper slot, maybe that's the way you go. Like, I'm looking at Sanchez in my team and wondering, how much long-term value do I get from him? On 4 yellow cards, might lose his place. If I can free up some funds, Sanchez to Alisson is a possibility, so I don't mind that there. But I think for most people, you're looking at a defender. I can't sit here, for me, and this is the way I play the game with my own biases and just loving Trent, I can't sit here and say that Trent isn't worth the extra 0.6 over Van Dijk. I think if you've got it, you pay it. Because yes, he won't start every game. Van Dijk will start more. And if in the games that Trent doesn't start, Van Dijk keeps a clean sheet, well, then that's an extra 6 points at least immediately there, right? That's assuming that Trent doesn't come on in some regard. But you are going to gain extra from Van Dijk in terms of appearance points and maybe extra clean sheets. But I would back Trent to have enough attacking output in terms of assists, the odd goal and bonus points to hopefully make up those points in the games that he does start. I will just note, by the way, Trent coming off early isn't an issue at all if he comes off early once the clean sheet is banked. Because it might be that Liverpool concede late on, Trent banks the clean sheet when he comes off, and then Van Dijk concedes. And that's the way FPL works, if you didn't know, by the way. If a player comes off of a clean sheet, they bank it, which means if their team concedes after they've left the pitch, then it doesn't affect their clean sheet points. So sometimes it can be a benefit. By the way, I was just looking at Trent's minutes. So the first 3 games of the season, he played 76, 71, 75. After that, he then played 90, 90, 90, 90, 80, 90, 90. Then got injured, played obviously 24 minutes in the game, he got injured. Then 0 minutes. Then he's come back and got 72. And obviously he was benched against Newcastle. Trent has been relatively nailed on for 90 minutes when he's been fit this season. So I don't even necessarily think that Trent gets lots and lots of early subs and gets benched a lot. I think Trent's minutes, I think Trent will start 8 or 9 of the next 10. And for that reason, I am very likely to be bringing in Trent this week. The only final thing I will say, and I keep saying the only final thing, is that 0.6, it's worth saving, but I would say not for the sake of it. So let me put it this way. If you're planning out future moves and that extra 0.6, you're like, that extra 0.6 will allow me to own, I don't know, something like Rodgers rather than Dibbling, or it will allow me to have Isak rather than Jackson, or it will allow me to have Timber if he's fit rather than Dallo, or something like that, right? If you're planning future moves and that 0.6 goes a long way, I would arguably just go out there and get Van Dijk. But if you're just saving it for the sake of saving it, I'd just attack right now with Trent Alexander-Arnold. I'll leave it there. I think if I was to rank them at the moment, it's probably Trent, Van Dijk, Alisson, then Robertson. I really don't think Alisson's a bad shout, but yeah, Trent closely followed by Van Dijk for me. Let me know your opinion on the Liverpool defence. So guys, just another quick one to remind you that there are some players on a suspension tightrope, i.e. they're on 4 yellow cards, and when they pick up a 5th yellow card, they will be suspended for 1 Premier League game. But this threshold actually increases very, very soon. So they only have to get through a few more games before the suspension tightrope is changed then to 10 yellow cards. So, to remind you how this works, the team that the player plays for has to have played 19 Premier League games, and once that happens, it is then extended to 10 yellows. So it's not the player has to have played, it's the team they play for. So basically, every single team in the Premier League other than Liverpool and Everton, because obviously they've played 1 less game, their team has to get through sort of game week 19. So come game week 20, the suspension tightrope will then be changed to 10 yellow cards. But for Liverpool and Everton players, that is from game week 21 onwards, because they have to play that extra game that they obviously missed. Hopefully that is clear. So this will be changed very, very soon. So a lot of these players, if not maybe all of them, might not get that suspension. I've only listed here the key players. You can obviously just go onto the Premier League or FPL site to check your own players and see if they are on 4 yellows. But in terms of the forwards, Nicholas Jackson is still on 4 yellows. He's been on that now for, I think, about 6 or 7 game weeks. So maybe he doesn't pick up the 5th yellow. And he's obviously doing well not to do it, because he picked up those first 4 very quickly. And clearly he's been told, stop it. But you just never know what might happen in a game. One little silly mistake, delaying a restart, pushing a player. The ref just gives a really soft yellow card. So there is a chance that comes, but it's up to you if you want to change your decision making based on that. And then Delap and Vardy, both of those cheap forwards, are also on 4 yellow cards. In the midfield, 2 players at that cheaper price that I've seen some people looking at, Rodgers and Kluivert, both on 4 yellows. So Rodgers picked up his 4th yellow in the 96th minute against Southampton. So he's now on 4 yellows. Would this put me off bringing in Rodgers? No, because Rodgers is probably a long-term asset anyway that you're going to have as your 8th attacker. But if you've already got Jackson, a couple of the defenders, maybe you've already got a Vardy in there or something like that, bring in another player that could be suspended. I have seen it before, and it's very rare, where 3 or 4 players pick up their 5th yellow in the same week, and sometimes your team can be absolutely decimated, but it's probably unlikely to happen. Kluivert, I just don't think is the best option anyway, but he is also on 4 yellows. With the defenders, I say defenders, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Robert Sanchez, Chelsea's goalkeeper, has somehow picked up 4 yellow cards this season, and he just loves to time waste, basically. And so there is a chance in the next few games he picks up a 5th yellow card. That would sum up what it's been like owning Robert Sanchez if that happens. But yeah, fingers crossed it doesn't. But if you were looking to make a goalkeeper transfer, I probably wouldn't own Sanchez anyway at the moment. And then for the defenders, Van Hecke, Munoz, Konate and Ait-Nouri are also on 4 yellow cards too. Munoz is a player that I'm really looking at from sort of game week 20 beyond. Crystal Palace's fixtures start to look good. He's shown some really great attacking threat, but obviously I'm not going to do it now for the next 3 regardless because their fixtures aren't great. I want him to get through the 19 Premier League games, have that suspension threshold lifted to 10 games, and when that happens, great, because then there's no risk of the yellow cards becoming an issue, at least for sort of 5 or 6 game weeks. And I just like the idea of owning a couple of Crystal Palace players, so I think they've started to improve. But yeah, hopefully this is helpful. As I said, make sure to check the players in your own team. There might be players that I've not listed here because they're not highly owned, but they're also on 4 yellows. And by about game week 20, we can finally relax around this and then wait until players start to approach that 10 yellow card threshold. So a player that a lot of you wanted me to discuss is Enzo Fernandez, who has already risen from 4.9 million to 5 million this week. And I'm going to say something which might be surprising to a lot of you that only watch my YouTube videos and don't follow me on social media. I've already bought Enzo Fernandez for game week 16. Now, the reason that that's surprising is, firstly, I've not really discussed him in much detail throughout the last few weeks. And also, I never make early moves. And when I say never, if I'm talking about moves that I've made on a Monday night for a Saturday deadline, it can't be more than 3 in the last 5 seasons. I just don't do it. The reason I don't do it is we get so much news throughout the week that might change our minds on the players that we're bringing in, the players that we might be looking to sell, and just other issues in our team that mean that the moves that you plan at the start of the week often aren't the moves that you make at the end of the week. So having said all of that, I moved on Monday night because I saw that he was going to rise from 4.9 to 5. He obviously did. And he's now 30% of his way to 5.1 million as well. If he does anything against Brentford, it'll go up to 5.2. Now, I wouldn't just bring in a player because they are going to rise in price, right? There must be something else outside of that. I've looked at possible things that I can do with my team now moving forward. There are a lot of things that I would like to do. And I've looked at 4 or 5 different paths, and all of them require quite a bit of money to free up, which obviously Mbermo to Fernandez, which is what I did, Enzo Fernandez, of course, freed up the money to do that. And all of those paths, I've looked at things such as bringing in Timber. I've looked at things such as bringing in Alisson for Sanchez. I've looked at bringing in Mateta for Cunha, Eze for Rodgers, different things with my team, just a few different paths there. All of them have left me with a maximum of 0.2 million in the bank across the next 2 to 3 weeks. And when you think about other price changes that might happen, like Timber looks like he could be close to a price rise tonight, even though obviously there is the injury concern. I know that if the Crystal Palace assets start smashing it, they'll go up. I think about the few future moves that I might make. They're all leaving me very, very short in terms of budget. So 0.1 million for me at the moment. It feels like almost like 0.3, 0.4 million. It feels like budget is extremely tight. So I feel like Enzo Fernandez, as I'll discuss in a second, is a fantastic option. And the reason that I moved so early is I think his price will continue to rise. And as a result, I wanted to get on him as early as possible. So I will start with that caveat there. In terms of what do I love, let's start with the fixtures. And by the way, I will try not to be too biased and I will admit all of the potential issues that we might have with Enzo Fernandez. And Chelsea fans, obviously, feel free to contribute in the comments. The fixtures are fantastic. So, right, let's move over to the official site. You can obviously see my team right now. I've only made the 1 transfer this week. But the fixtures right now are great up until, I would argue, 28. This run of green here, and not all of these are easy, right? Fulham's not a particularly easy game. Even Everton, they've been defending well. But Chelsea are just attacking so well that you expect them to score in most of these. They've got City in 23, but we also know that City haven't been defending overly well. Brighton and Villa aren't games that you would expect Chelsea to struggle to score that much. And then it's Southampton and Leicester back-to-back home games. So you could conceivably keep your Chelsea assets throughout this period and start them in virtually every game. But you might think also, yeah, there are some games I don't want to. So what games might you not really desperately want to? Well, I mean, 18 you might not want to, but really it's 23 is the week that you really wouldn't want to start Enzo. So the 1 week where you would want to start Rodgers, you wouldn't want to start Enzo 23, Rodgers has West Ham at home. So in that 1 week, Rodgers can absolutely cover you. Other fixtures where you'd want to start Rodgers instead, you might want to start Rodgers in game week 20, I would argue potentially, right? If I go to Enzo instead, in game week 20, Crystal Palace away is not the best fixture in the world, maybe. I mean, there's a bit of a benching headache there. Maybe I'm stretching. And then in terms of if you look at Rodgers, the weeks where you don't want to play Rodgers is 17, 18, and 22. In 17, 18, and 22, they have obviously Everton, Fulham, and Wolves. I'm not saying the rotation's like exceptional every week, but basically when you want to play Enzo Fernandez, you don't desperately want to play Rodgers, and then vice versa as well. So I feel like the two of them for now have a decent enough rotation that it can cover you. So I'm not having to start each of them every week. So fixtures are good, rotates fairly well with Rodgers. What this really comes down to is what role is Enzo Fernandez going to play for Chelsea? So what I've done is I've separated Chelsea's games into the first 11 and the last 4, because in the last 4 game weeks, there has been a significant switch in Enzo Fernandez's positioning. So in the first 11, for large spells, firstly, Fernandez didn't start every game there, but he was also playing a much deeper role. If you look at the touch map just there, you can see that a lot of it almost playing like a defensive midfielder. He did still get forward in that role, and he does still get forward in that role, but largely sat alongside Caicedo, just not really getting forward. So you can see here, his non-penalty expected goals per 90 was 0.07, expected assists 0.11, big chance involvement 0.15. In that role, where Enzo plays as a DM, he's a terrible FPL asset, right? He's just not it. However, recently, with Lavia playing well and being fit and available, what they've done is they've started the game on paper with Enzo and Lavia as the DMs and Caicedo at right back. But then Caicedo inverts into midfield with Lavia and Caicedo alongside each other, and that pushes Enzo Fernandez basically into the same position as Cole Palmer. Slightly deeper, but they're essentially playing as dual 8s or more likely dual 10s. So Enzo Fernandez, as you can see by the touch map, is then getting a lot more touches in advanced positions. If you watch the games, he's getting forward a hell of a lot more. And in the last 4 games, not only is his data improved, but he's also played 90 minutes in all 4 of them. So you can see 0.29 expected goals per 90 and 0.4 expected assists. That puts his goal involvement at 0.69 expected goal involvement per 90, 1.25 big chance involvement per 90. If Chelsea continue this system, where Caicedo starts at right back, inverts into midfield, and then Lavia and Caicedo are there, allowing Fernandez the freedom to move forward, he is well and truly worth the money. There's a couple of concerns here. Firstly, Lavia's injury record is not great. Right, we saw that. He came off against Spurs, and I'm thinking that was probably due to the elbow to the head, but there is also a chance that there's some sort of injury concern there. It might be a precautionary substitution, as was the suggestion, but his injury record hasn't been fantastic. If Lavia is not fit and available, there is a good chance that they start Gusto at right back. He maybe doesn't invert, and Enzo has to play as a DM. There is also the possibility that one of Cucurella or Gusto inverts into midfield, and then Enzo is still given the freedom, but I think that is slightly less likely. I guess what I'm saying here is Enzo being a great FP option is dependent upon the system that Chelsea play and Lavia being fit and available, I think, which means that there is a high risk associated with this transfer. But if he continues in this role, with the chances that he's getting, the fixtures coming up, and also if you look at the touch map, he takes pretty much all in-swinging corners from the left-hand side and in-swinging free kicks as well. So the way that I viewed this is you have a 5 million, or at that point, a £4.9 million asset with the best fixtures in the league between now and game week 26 to 28, playing at the moment, basically 90 minutes per game in the Prem, on all set pieces from the left-hand side, with great goal involvement, expected goals and expected assists, and passing the eye test, playing for one of the best attacks in the league in Chelsea. It feels like it could be a fantastic transfer, but there are also lots of sort of issues and there's a lot of risk associated with it. Hopefully I've done a good enough job of explaining why I took the risk. My other thought process on this, before I move on to the next section, is at the moment, yes, Enzo Fernandez probably is my 4th midfielder, with Rodgers being my 5th midfielder. But there is the possibility, like I said, that I try and get Rodgers to Eze or Rodgers to Matoma or something like that, where I free up a little bit more funds and upgrade Rodgers. And then Enzo Fernandez becomes my 5th midfielder and my 8th attacker. So I think that will be the plan right now, is if I see Enzo Fernandez dropping deep, playing a deeper role, and actually his data starts to regress back to what we saw before, I'll probably look to try and sell Rodgers and then bring in a better fourth midfielder, and then Enzo Fernandez will just largely sit on my bench. I know this has blocked me from Jackson, so the keen eyes amongst you will probably say, you can't get Jackson in one move now. There's a couple of things there. I like a lot of the other forwards. I love Isak. I love João Pedro. I like Mateta. I like Chris Wood. There are loads of other players that I can own at the moment instead. And also, I think I'll probably have to sell Sanchez soon. I think he'll lose his place, and if he doesn't lose his place, might pick up that yellow card. Or I might just decide I don't want Sanchez anymore. So yes, it might require an extra transfer if I desperately want to get Jackson. But for now, I'm not too worried about that. Let me know if you're interested in Enzo. I expect if he gets anything against Brentford, he'll be up at sort of 5.2, 5.3 very, very soon. So guys, I've just covered Enzo in a lot of detail. A lot of people looking at Iwobi this week. And by the way, Semenyo is still an absolutely great shout. Plays 90 minutes pretty much every game. Underlying data's still okay. He's just been a little bit disappointing, playing a slightly deeper role. But I have absolutely no issue with Semenyo. I would argue if I hadn't have gone for Enzo, I would have gone for one of Iwobi or Semenyo. Though they would probably still be my top three choices if we're looking at sort of 5.7 and below. Probably put Rodgers in there, but of course I already own Rodgers. So yeah, I've got no issue with Semenyo, got no issue with bringing in Rodgers for you. But Iwobi is a player that I think is maybe going under the radar slightly, and probably the main reason for that is just the fact that the fixtures over the next three probably don't look ideal. And maybe traditionally Iwobi is a player that, I don't know, struggled for output and goal threat. Like there's that bit of a narrative around him. Before we look at his data, let's discuss the fixtures. And actually I'll jump straight over to the official site. Let's just go on to transfers. By the way, that 3.6 million in the bank, let me know if you know where that's being used. I think it's fairly obvious, but you'll have my team selection video tomorrow if you want to check out what my plans are for my team moving forward. But yeah, Iwobi, the next three fixtures, yeah, overall they're not ideal, right, with Liverpool and Chelsea. But he does have Southampton at home in 17, which is obviously a great fixture. And then after that, I actually really like it. It's Bournemouth, Ipswich, West Ham, Leicester. United's not a horrible game. Neither's Newcastle. Forest, Palace, Wolves. I mean, I'm not saying this is a perfect run here, but firstly, the thing is to say that if you've even had to start him pretty much every week, it's not a bad run of fixtures. And then in a similar way to what I said with Enzo, the fixture rotation works wonderfully. So in 16, when he's got Liverpool away, you play Rodgers, assuming that you've got someone like a Rodgers or a Semenyo, who both rotate quite well with Iwobi. Then in 17, you play, obviously when Rodgers has City, you can play Iwobi against Southampton at home. The only issue is in 18, you have to play one of them. But let's say you just play Iwobi against Chelsea. And then some of the upcoming fixtures. 24, you might not want to necessarily play Iwobi against Newcastle. Aston Villa have Wolves away. So like the rotation between Iwobi and Rodgers arguably works potentially even better than the one between Enzo and Rodgers. And the great thing with Iwobi, if we just go back to him on the other side, his minutes are unbelievable, right? So he started every single game this season and got 90 minutes in most of them, apart from one really early sub where he got 65 minutes against West Ham and maybe 76 against City. It's been 85 plus minutes in every single game. So with Enzo, you say, oh, the rotation works well between Enzo and Rodgers. You don't even know if Enzo's going to start every game. Maybe the same with Rodgers. With Iwobi, the man is always on the pitch. So there is a lot to like about Iwobi for the reasons that I've just listed. My concern with Iwobi, and maybe this won't bother you, but I said the same about Dwight McNeil and it proved to be very true. You can run away from the numbers a little bit, but the goal threat is quite worrying for me. So if you look at his non-penalty expected goals per 90, it's 0.13. He scored a couple of absolute worldies, Iwobi, and he is a very technically gifted player, but you are relying on him scoring worldies every week. To some extent, I said the same about Cunha, by the way, and maybe we'll discuss Cunha later in the week, because I know a lot of people are looking at sort of Cunha to Isak or selling Cunha. I'll discuss that in maybe the deadline decisions video once we get a bit more info throughout the week, but I said the same about him. Cunha's scoring worldies every week. He needs a little bit more sort of raw goal threat. Chances from open player, he's getting like one-on-ones. I feel the same about Iwobi, and I said the same about Dwight McNeil. Dwight McNeil got a brace in a game in a similar way to Iwobi. These players are technically gifted. They will take shots from the edge of the box, but you need them to get clear-cut chances on a consistent basis to score goals. And 0.13 non-penalty expected goals per 90, you're looking at a goal every 8 games. The other issue with Iwobi is he's not necessarily backing that up with crazy creativity, right? 0.22 expected assist. It tells you he'll get an assist every 4 games or so because he's not on set pieces. He's not on corners. And Fulham aren't necessarily a team that go out there and score tons of goals either. So I think Iwobi, how would I sum up Iwobi? I think Iwobi is a very solid buy, especially if you've already got Rodgers or Semenyo and you can rotate him in and out as a sort of 4th/5th midfielder. And yes, I do expect returns. Like 3 of the next 5 games against Southampton, Bournemouth, and Ipswich at home, there are goals there for Fulham and there are goals there for Iwobi, I'm sure. But just longer term, I just don't feel like he's as exciting. I don't feel like he carries the same goal threat as even someone like an Enzo, if Enzo's playing in that advanced role. Like, I think Semenyo carries much more goal threat than an Iwobi. So that would be my only concern with him. I don't want to put you off. I would just need a little bit more. But I think he's very solid. I'd love to know down below, are any of you interested in Iwobi this week? So guys, there we have it. That is my Game Week 16 preview. Hopefully that has been helpful for you. And if it has, and you're still watching at this point, can I please ask you to smash that like button? Let's aim for 1,500 likes on today's video. And if you aren't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so as an early Christmas present to me. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.